In November 1943, the United States military made a decision. They would not invade the Japanese fortress of Bougainville. They would not fight the 40,000 battle-hardened soldiers dug into its jungles. Instead, they would erase them from the war. They would not use bullets. They would not use artillery. They would use a new, colder kind of weapon: isolation. This is the story of how a single 7-day air offensive did not just win a battle. It passed a death sentence, a sentence that left 40,000 men trapped in a 6,000-square-mile jungle prison, cut off from the world and left to be consumed by starvation, disease, and the jungle itself. For more untold World War II stories like this, make sure to subscribe. This is the story of how America made an entire army disappear. Our story begins not on Bougainville, but on the small island just to its north, Buka. Buka was the key. Its airfields were the forward eyes of Rabaul, Japan's mighty fortress in the Pacific. From Buka, Japanese Zeros provided air cover for every supply convoy. Buka was the shield that kept the 40,000 men on Bougainville alive. If Buka was blinded, Bougainville would starve. On November 1st, 1943, the sentence was passed. For 7 consecutive days, American air power unleashed a relentless, crushing offensive. It was not a raid, it was an annihilation. P-38. Lightning swept in first at treetop level, hunting Japanese fighters, shooting them down as they tried to take off, ripping them apart. This was the new, ruthless heart of America's island-hopping strategy. General MacArthur and Admiral Nimitz had realized the flaw in Japan's fortress doctrine. Japan wanted a bloody, decisive battle for every island. They wanted America to waste thousands of lives storming their bunkers. The new American plan was colder. Don't attack the stronghold, cut the arteries. Why spend 50,000 American lives to capture 40,000 Japanese soldiers when you can just bypass them? Just as the Buka air offensive ended, 14,000 U.S. Marines landed on Bougainville at Cape Tarokina. They weren't there to conquer the island. The Japanese commander, General Hyakutake, readied his 40,000 men for a massive, glorious counteroffensive, a battle for the soul of the island. For General Hyakutake and his 40,000 men, the world became silent. The skies that once held Japanese Zeros were now empty, save for the constant droning of American patrols. They were completely cut off. Every Japanese convoy that tried to break through from Rabaul was spotted and annihilated long before it reached the shore. American destroyers hunted them on the surface. Submarines hunted them from below. A nighttime airdrop of supplies failed when the planes were shot down. Their precious cargo of food and medicine fell deep into the impenetrable jungle, lost forever. In May 1944, Japan attempted one final desperate supply run. It failed. After that, nothing. No food, no medicine, no ammunition, not even radio messages. From June 1944 onward, 40,000 men were totally alone, walled in by an ocean they couldn't cross and an airspace they couldn't challenge. The Americans didn't tighten the noose, they just left. They walked away and let the jungle finish the job. Now the real war began. Not a war of bullets, but a war of calories. Bougainville, 85% mountains and rainforest, cannot feed 40,000 men. General Hyakutake issued one final order: live off the land. But there was no land to live off, only an endless 6,000-square-mile green prison. Hope died first. For months, soldiers believed a relief fleet would come. Then the radios went silent. By 1945, they understood the truth. Japan had forgotten them. They had been erased from the war. The army began to eat itself. Rations were cut to 1/3, then to nothing. Soldiers hunted rats, lizards, snakes. They chewed insects and dug up bitter roots. They boiled tree bark and leaves. Some plants poisoned them. Disease came next. Without medicine, simple jungle cuts turned to rotting, gangrenous wounds. In August 1945, the war ended. The news reached Bougainville via American radio. Many surviving soldiers refused to believe it, convinced it was a trick. It took their own general speaking on a failing radio to confirm the truth. Japan had surrendered. The war was over. The survivors wept, not because they had lost, but because they understood their suffering had been meaningless. They had been dying for 2 years for a war fought and lost hundreds of miles away. On September 8, 1945, the ghosts emerged from the jungle. 17,000 men walked, crawled, or were carried toward American lines. The Marines waiting to receive them were stunned into silence. These were not soldiers. They were skeletons, bodies weighing 70 or 80 pounds, uniforms hanging like rags, eyes hollow. One Marine said, "I thought they were prisoners from a concentration camp. I didn't know they were soldiers." The final numbers were clear. 40,000 men had been on the island. 3,000 were dead. 87% of them had not been killed in battle. They died of hunger. They died of disease. They died of abandonment. How can 7 days of air raids kill 40,000 men? Because a soldier doesn't just die from a bullet. He dies when his lifeline is cut. Those 7 days in November 1943 didn't just destroy airplanes. They destroyed hope. They destroyed the artery that fed an army. They turned a fortress into a tomb. The men continued to breathe for 2 more years, but their fate was sealed in that first week. The dying just took longer. That is why Bougainville was not a battle. It was a sentence.